Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and I was always told I had a voice for radio, so today I am bringing you a look at Charizard. Now, Charizard has always been one of the coolest Pokemon. He has always been one of the favourites, one of the classic Pokemon. And way back in the Pokemon base set, the very first set of cards, we had this Charizard card. And this was the Charizard card. This was the rare one, the one that all the kids in the playground wanted. And I count myself among that. Now, what a lot of more recent players don't realise is this card was kind of reprinted back in the Stormfront expansion as a secret rare, and it's been reprinted again in the later set Evolutions. The difference is it might now be really, really good. Now, the first thing we've got to say about Charizard, other than how popular he is, of course, is the fact that he is a Stage 2. Now, he's not grass, so there's no forest of giant plants. He's not fighting or water, so there's no Maxies or Archies going on here. We've got the traditional route with rare candy, or the even more traditional just evolve up normally route. However, as I've said a few times now, if you're running a Stage 2 deck, you want to be running Talonflame. It's got free retreat. For 1 energy, you do 40 damage, and you search your deck for any 2 cards and put them into your hand. And let's face it, ladies and gentlemen, it's a very, very good starter. Now, you're not going to start with them every game. On average, it will be around 50%-ish, depending on how many basics you are playing. But it's a good starter. Now, let's have a look at Charizard. Now that we've talked about how to get him out as a Stage 2. Now, 4 energy, 200, discard 3 of them is alright. 200 damage is a lot. If we look at standard EXs like a Veltal or Giratina, they will be one-hit KO by this. Now, most Megas, think Mewtwo and Rayquaza, have 210, 220 HP, but what you can do here is play something like a Giovanni's to do the extra 20 damage, or something along those lines. There are other ways to do the damage. If you really want, you could even play a Golbat line, but methinks that might be just a tad bit clunky. But we're getting basically one-hit KOs on everything here. That is pretty gosh darn good. The problem is, of course, that we've got to have 4 energy on the Charizard every single turn in order to actually do this attack. So one of the big problems here is going to be getting the energy. We'll talk about that in a moment. As a side note here, 150 HP, pretty gosh darn good. Resistance to fighting is always quite handy. And the weakness to water is annoying, but not the end of the world. There are decks like Greninja, which are water-based, which will do a lot of damage. But water's not a huge type at the moment, so it's not that bad. Now, being a fire type at the moment is fine. There are some people playing decks like Sceptile, for instance. But it's almost certainly going to get a lot better when Sun and Moon comes out. When Sun and Moon comes out, as I've told you, we're going to have cards like Lurantis GX and Decidueye GX. I've done a video on each of those, link in the description. At that stage, Fire will be a much, much better type. And to be honest, 200 isn't going to be enough to KO Stage 1 and 2 GXs. Basic GXs like Snorlax it will be. But it's not going to be enough to KO these Stage 1 and 2 GXs unless they're weak to fire. So, the general stats here look pretty good. We've got a problem with the fact that he's a Stage 2, and we've got a problem with the fact it costs 4 energy. Now, here's the bonus, ladies and gentlemen. We've got the ability Energy Burn. All energy attached to this Pokemon are fire energy instead of their usual type. Now, this is a fantastic ability because it opens up options which we would not otherwise have. Now, of course, with it being an ability, there are ways to turn it off. Breakpoint Greninja will turn off the ability, but then again, Greninja's hitting you for weakness, so the ability, it's not the biggest worry here. It's the one-hit KOs. We're going to be the big worry here. We've also got things like Garbodor that's becoming quite popular nowadays. The good news is, of course, that being a Stage 2, the ability will not be turned off by Silent Lab. So there are, of course, some bonuses. although it's still going to be vulnerable to ability lock. Then, of course, we've got the classic Hex Maniac, which can be a problem. So, if we want to go just fire energy acceleration, we have got some options. Number one, we can go for Max Elixir. Now, you can only use Max Elixir when he's a Charmander, but of course you could have some other basics and use a combination of Max Elixir and Energy Switch to move the energy from your basic onto your Charizard. Could work. The other thing you could do here is just use EXP share to keep these energy when he gets KO'd, but of course 3 of them are going to be discarded when you attack, so the chances are there's only going to be about 1 energy when he does get KO'd, which will, shall we say, neuter the effectiveness of EXP share. Now, if we want to go the energy switch route, and I am not suggesting we do, one very clunky thing you could do is play a Mega Pokemon and use a mix of Mega Turbo and Energy Switch. Not saying you should, but I'm saying you could tech Charizard into a Mega deck using Energy Switch. A more sensible plan here would be to use non-EX Volcanion. You could have 2 Charmanders on the bench, you could then use non-EX Volcanion's attack 20 damage and attach an energy to each of those Charmanders. The other option you've got while your ability is turned on is double colourless energy. Double colourless energy will help brilliantly here. You need to be essentially getting free energy onto Charizard per turn. Double colourless as your attachment for the turn is 2 of them, and then 1 energy switch, 1 max elixir, whatever, will give you that 3rd energy. Although you would of course have to max elixir before you rare candied into Charizard. Now, you're probably thinking the same as I am at this stage, which is, well, that all sounds very good, Ross, but all of these sound clunky. Max Elixir or Mega Turbo with Energy Switch, little bit clunky. Volcanion is quite good, but it means you've got to play a slower game getting energy out with Volcanion to begin with. Double Colourless is good, but only, of course, if you have got your ability turned on. The other thing you could use is use Xeneas's Geomancy to get 2 fairy energy from the deck and attach to your bench Pokemon, and then of course when they became Charizard they would count as fire energy. Again, it slows the game down. Again, you've got to rely on the ability. So, not amazing options so far. Volcanion DCE, clearly the best. But if nothing else, what we've just done is had a quick talk of how to accelerate energies at the moment. But of course, ladies and gentlemen, if they were the only options we had, maybe this wouldn't be the best card ever. We've got other options. Coming in the Sun and Moon set, we have in fact got 2 options which could potentially make Charizard a heck of a lot better than he already is. Number 1, Lurantis GX. Now, I've done a video about her, like I've said. Link in the description. What Lurantis does is allow you to get 2 basic energy from your discard and attach them to your Pokemon in any way that you like. Now, in the video, I was working from an incorrect translation. I said it was grass. It's actually any. And this is for 1 grass energy. So you attack with Lurantis, do 40 damage and get 2 energy onto a Charizard, and then you attack with Lurantis doing 40 and get 2 energy onto a Charizard. And of course you get 2 energy with Flower Supply, Lurantis' attack. You attach a DCE as your attachment for the turn. That is a Charizard ready to go. You early game can use Lurantis to set up the Charizards, then you sweep with the Charizard later on. Now, this does necessitate playing a mixture of grass and fire energy, but of course any grass which are attached to Charizard will become fire as long as your ability isn't turned off. And although Garbodor is seeing a lot of play at the moment, there is no guarantee that when Sun and Moon comes out it will continue to see play. It might, we don't know. So Lurantis is a pretty good option. The other option coming in the Sun and Moon set is Vikavolt. Once during your turn, you get to attach a grass and a lightning energy to your Pokemon in any way that you like. Which means, and this is from the deck, And from the deck is always better energy acceleration. So you grab a Grass and Lightning from your deck, you attach them to Charizard, you attach a double colourless, you have gone from no energy on Charizard to 4 energy on Charizard in one go. Now, as I keep saying, if your ability gets turned off, this won't necessarily help you. So this route does mean it leaves you more reliant on your ability than you might like to be, but it is certainly not the end of the world by any stretch of the imagination. So, nowadays the best way to play Charizard is going to be with your Volcanion and double colourless energy, but down the line we have got Lurantis and Vikavolt who are going to make Charizard a lot better. The other thing is that at the moment Lurantis will just be able to use Forest of Giant Plants. As for Vikavolt, we know we're not getting a Grass Charger Bug in Sun and Moon, but if we ever get a Grass Charger Bug, then we imagine we're getting a Grass Grubbin. I believe that's already been confirmed. So you'll actually be able to use Forest of Giant Plants to get Vikavolt out straight away on the very first turn of the game and just start powering up your Pokemon as you go. I suppose the big question here with Charizard is it really any better than Volcanion? Because if you're going to be using baby Volcanion to accelerate energy and smashing with a fire-type Pokemon, why don't we just go ahead and use a Volcanion deck? So, there are certain advantages to using Charizard over Volcanion. First of all, you are not using any EXs like you would be with Volcanion EX, so you're never giving away 2 prizes, you're only giving up a single prize at a turn. This is a major advantage. But you're probably going to be a little bit slower, because you're having to get out your stage 2. The other huge advantage, of course, that Charizard has over Volcanion is that you're hitting for 200 damage, which means you are getting one-hit KOs. And with Volcanion, maybe you're getting one-hit KOs, maybe you're not. You've got that steam-up ability to do extra damage, but that can be turned off, and it can be turned off with Silent Lab, which Charizard cannot be turned off by. So the answer here is, I don't really know. In the future, when we've got Lurantis and Vikavolt, I really like Charizard. For the time being, maybe Volcanion is a little bit better. Charizard being a basic, of course, means you can't use Fighting Fury Bout or Max Elixir, and he takes an extra energy than Volcanion EX or regular Volcanion. So there are a lot of downsides at the moment. And for all those people about to write in the comments that I forgot about Burning Energy, I didn't forget about Burning Energy. I really don't like it. Can't use it with Max Elixir, can't use it with EXP Share, can't use it with Baby Volcanion, and I don't like it as good as Double Colourless Energy. Yeah, you don't have to discard it when you attach it, but it's one attachment which becomes 2 when you attack, rather than 2 attachments straight away, which is what Double Colourless Energy is. Here's my conclusion with Charizard. People have asked me to look at this card, people have asked me to do an analysis, and I've just talked in a lot of detail, so let's sum this up nicely. At the moment, the options aren't great. You basically have to use Volcanion and Double Colourless. I'm not sure it's good enough to warrant playing over Volcanion. However, in the future, when we've got Lurantis and Vikavolt, especially if we get a Grass Charged Bug and we can use Forest of Giant Plants to get Vikavolt out, I think Charizard could become a genuine player. Being able to one-hit KO pretty much everything while accelerating all of your energy. There's a lot of potential here, ladies and gentlemen, and if nothing else, that Charizard card that we all loved when we were kids is back, and it might be playable. If nothing else, this is the best Charizard deck we've had since the Arceus Charizard, so yay! Now you know the deal, ladies and gentlemen. Like, comment and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter @TheWassy, and might I suggest clicking the little thumbnail that just came up and seeing how Pokemon tournaments work in Japan. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio. Look after yourselves till next time.